So welcome to our final meditation atelier in this season of wintering. You did it. We did it. We made it through. We made it through winter, and hopefully you've not just survived it, and that you've thrived and flourished. So I'm going to begin with a reading from the book, and I'm going to close with a reading for the book. So today is a session of consolidation of what we've been working through since October. So we prepared ourselves for winter, we had a period of dormancy, and now we're getting ready for the busyness of spring and summer. As I walk, I remind myself of the words of Alan Watts. To hold your breath is to lose your breath. In the wisdom of insecurity, Watts makes a case that always convinces me, but which I always seem to forget, that life by its very nature is uncontrollable, that we should stop trying to finalise our comfort and security and instead find a radical acceptance of the endless, unpredictable change that is the very essence of this life. Our suffering, he says, comes from the fight we put up against this fundamental truth. Running away from fear is fear. Fighting pain is pain. Trying to be brave is being scared. If the mind is in pain, the mind is pain. The thinker has no other form than his thought. There is no escape. For Watts, the only moment we can depend on is the present, that which we know and sense right now. The past is gone. The future to which we devote so much of our brain power is an unstable element entirely unknowable, a will-o'-the-wisp that ever eludes our grasp. When we endlessly ruminate over distant times, we miss extraordinary things in the present moment. These extraordinary things are, in actual fact, all we have, the here and now, the direct perception of our senses. Whenever I return to Watts's work, a small rebellious voice rises up in me and shouts, "That's not fair. Life is more secure for some people than for others." But that doesn't make his wisdom any less. Watts isn't offering us a cheap, puffed up solution to the vagaries of life. He isn't telling us that if we can only master this small trick of thought, all our dreams will come to fruition. He's telling us the truth. Change will not stop happening. The only part we can control is our response. Okay. Taking a moment to arrive and settle. And taking a few deep in breaths and out breaths. And taking a moment to check in for any points of tension or tightening within your body. When we clench and squeeze and scrunch up, particularly the face here and the shoulders, we are communicating with our brain that we're not safe. When we hunch up, when we curl over, when we slump, the body forms a protective posture. This communicates to our brain that we're not safe. So let's put our bodies in a tall, graceful, and dignified posture. Let go of any tension or tightening in the face. So the forehead, the cheeks, and the jaw. You might find it helpful to massage here. They've probably worked very hard already today, these muscles. So smoothing your forehead, Massaging your eyebrows, maybe just squidging the little space in between the eyebrows, and then moving to the cheeks and down to the jaw and the lips, and then down the back of the neck, the shoulders, and those muscles that kind of support the neck, that holds the head, that holds you up all day. Moving over to the shoulders, you might need to do one at a time here, depending on your flexibility. And you're probably at this moment going, gosh, why don't I do this more often? Moving down to the arms and the hands. And if any of these movements aren't within your range, then you can picture them. And then just massaging the back, the hips, moving down to the legs, and the feet if you can reach them. And then returning to stillness when you're ready. Checking in with your posture. And now an invitation to bring your awareness to your breath. And we're practicing being in the present moment. Observing the breath in the body. So as best you can, breathing through the nose. And finding a relaxed and comfortable rhythm for you. You may want to extend the out breath. You may want to have an even rhythm, finding what's right for you. We've been learning to listen and pay attention to our bodies. Following our own seasons within this period of wintering. Learning to listen and to pay attention. To learn the language of our bodies. To better take care of ourselves. That our mind and body are in constant communication. They're not separate. For the most of our days, we spend our time in our prefrontal cortex, so around the forehead area of the brain, our consciousness. And in learning to turn down the stimulus and be with the quiet of our bodies and our breath, we observe how much is going on here. how much we ignore. You are a combination of your genes, your experiences, your environment, your culture, all the things that have brought you to be here today, all those ancestors, all those people who fought and struggled so hard. What is it to be you today in this moment? The points of contact that you're making with the earth. The fabric of your clothes against your skin. The air against your skin. What is it to be you, alive, stepping away from the story and into your direct experience? The ordinary, the unnoticed, the quiet. Quite how extraordinary you are. How beautifully you work. Your hands. Got you dressed today. Took care of your needs and took care of others. Your heart beating in your chest. Pumping. Can you notice the subtle beat of your heart, your chest? You might want to place one of those hands over it. And then moving your hands back down to resting. Let's move our awareness to our lungs. And you notice the rise and fall of your breath. Perhaps noticing how it moves your arms away from your sides or your shoulders up. Can you notice the breath at the back? There's a very subtle movement here of the ribs. It's not easy to notice. Perhaps it's acting as a prompt to correct your posture. So you have a tendency to naturally slump, sink. Now moving your awareness to your stomach. The actual organ, the skin and the belly. Can you notice anything here? Have you eaten today? Have you drunk some water? Is it sending you any messages here that you've ignored? Maybe it feels content and there's very little information being communicated. And now an invitation to bring your awareness to your bladder. What, if anything, can you notice here? Your bowels. Is there anything to notice? Is there any bubbling, movements? Now, you may have noticed that it's getting progressively harder to notice. Can you notice your kidneys? Some people do, particularly if they're overworking them. The liver. Your gallbladder. Not everybody gets to keep this. If you don't have it, do you notice any difference from the life you did have with it? All these organs generally quietly get on, do their work of filtering, feeding, nourishing, cleansing, clearing, detoxing, with very little direct input from us. Often ignored until we've pushed them to their limits. We have a tendency to not notice our lungs until we're out of breath, or we have a cough or a cold. Again, our stomach, till we've over or underfilled it, eaten something that disagrees with us. Likewise with the bowels. The bladder. And then the other organs tend to be a bit more quiet, even in distress. An invitation to move your awareness to your brain, this grey-like jelly that we know so little about. The control centre. Processes information and filters out what's useful and what's not. And that in taking this time out of our busy lives to sit and be with the present moment, we have an opportunity to increase the grey matter, to rewire networks, sort of installing some new software to override some of the glitches to our systems. Simply by being present in this moment with our breath and the felt and physical sensations of our body, observing and noticing. There's no need to fix anything and there's nothing to change. We're simply noticing that the mind wanders, creates stories, fills in gaps, entertains us. And that the breath and the body are always there to anchor us in the present moment. And that in practicing in this way, we can weave this into our day, checking in with the body, releasing any tension or tightening that we may have allowed in, anchoring in the breath, and then returning to the cognitive experience. The mind and body connection. Correcting our posture, releasing tension and tightening in the face, communicates to the brain that we're safe. This impacts the hormones, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, reduces cortisol, allows our body to move into rest and restoration, to heal. Simply by being present to our experiences. Just as they are. Noticing habitual tendencies to want to fix, to want to change, to want things to be different. And without judgment, and with kindness, bringing your awareness back to your breath and to your body, noticing the sensations, the shapes and colours and textures and movements and information. Knowing that in times of challenge and stress, can extend the exhalation. We can actively release any tension in the body. I just want you to bring into your mind's eye something that's caused you some stress recently. It doesn't need to be anything too juicy. Maybe somebody's annoyed you, or somebody said something, forgot something. As you hold this experience in your mind's eye, bringing your awareness to your body. What's your body's reaction to this? Looking with your head, your shoulders, the belly, your legs and your toes, all around, being curious and interested in your response here. What is the physical and felt sensation of this challenge? And bringing your awareness to your breath, breathing in and breathing out. And then returning to this challenge. And then bringing your awareness back to the breath in the body, breathing in and breathing out. Our mind and body are intertwined. And like a pendulum, we can drop from the cognitive experience into the physical experience. Check in with the body and the breath. Make any adjustments. Simply notice. And then return to the thoughts. You are not your thoughts. And your thoughts are not facts. They're mental events. An interpretation. And now bringing your awareness to your breath. Following the full flow of your breath as you breathe in and you breathe out. Where is the breath easy to notice? Where does it become more difficult, more challenging? What's most interesting for you here today? Is the air cool or warm? Are there any smells? I'm just resting for a few more moments. closing, wintering. I'm beginning to think that unhappiness is one of the simple things in life, a pure, basic emotion to be respected, if not savoured. I would never dream of suggesting we should wallow in misery or shrink from doing everything we can to alleviate it, but I do think it's instructive. After all, unhappiness has a function. It tells us that something is going wrong. If we don't allow ourselves the fundamental honesty of our own sadness, then we miss an important cue to adapt. We seem to be living in an age when we're bombarded with entreaties to be happy, but we're suffering from an avalanche of depression. We're urged to stop sweating the small stuff, yet we're chronically anxious. I often wonder if these are just normal feelings that become monstrous when they're denied. A great deal of life will always suck. There will be moments when we're riding high and moments where we can't bear to get out of bed. Both are normal. Both, in fact, require a little perspective. In the process, life happened. As I'd ineptly summoned them, several winters came at once. My world shrunk, literally and metaphorically. I couldn't do as much as I'd hoped. I couldn't be the person I'd imagined, cheerful, energetic, summery. I struggled. I was dragged under by periods of depression. I was gnawed at by anxiety. There were times when I thought that I probably couldn't write this, that I wasn't up to it, that doing so would bring some kind of catastrophe of embarrassment for just having the guile to think I had anything to say on the matter. Once upon a time, this would have engulfed me entirely for a season, and I would have emerged in a year or two shaking my head and starting again. But here I am, and here it is. The only difference, the only reason I have finished this is experience. I recognised winter. I saw it coming, a mile off since you ask, and I looked in the eye. I greeted it and I let it in. I had some tricks up my sleeve, you see. I've learnt them the hard way. When I started feeling the drag of winter, I began to treat myself like a favoured child, with kindness and love. I assumed my needs were reasonable and that my feelings were signals of something important. I kept myself well fed and made sure I was getting enough sleep. I took myself for walks in the fresh air and spent time doing things that soothed me. I asked myself, what is this winter all about? I asked myself, what change is coming? Nature shows that survival is a practice. Sometimes it flourishes, lays on fat garlands itself in leaves, makes abundant honey, and sometimes it powers back to the very basics of existence in order to keep living. It doesn't do this resentfully, assuming that one day it will get things right and everything will smooth out. It winters in cycles again and again, forever and ever. It attends to this work each day and every day. For plants and animals, winter is part of the job. The same is true for humans. So moving, stretching in any way you may have ignored. Let's move to taking tea. Not quite got the height right today. Maybe I'm not going to have tea. Right. I'm just going to pause the recording. For those of you practicing in your own time, an invitation to journal or reflect on your experience of today's session and the last few months. You've made it through winter. So we're going to finish with our bread and butter practice. So this is the one I want you to be practicing 3 times a day, a breakfast, lunch and dinner, of taking a mindful pause. So just taking a moment to settle as you are. You can have your eyes open or closed. This is a sort of thing you can do in the supermarket queue, on the toilet, while you're making a cup of tea, wherever. It doesn't need to be formal, okay? So checking with the points of contact that you're making with the earth. Your posture, your facial expression, your shoulders. Noticing. You can adjust if you like, but noticing is the key. And then an invitation to narrow your awareness to your breath, to breathe in and breathe out. And then expanding your awareness from the breath to include all of your body, you breathing here. What a miracle that you're even here. And I want you to think about what you need to do next. Do you need to stretch, move, eat, get outside, put some moisturizer on? And as best you can, taking this sense of connection and awareness into whatever you have left to do with your day. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back with the next series in a few weeks.